Good morning, everyone. Welcome to what amounts to a continuation of yesterday's hearing for the House of Representatives Transportation Committee. We were reviewing a package of bills put together by a leadership task force that made some recommendations for changes we might want to consider in terms of the future of transportation needs and revenue sources as we look for the next number of years and deal with the fallout from the pandemic that we're going through and the consequential loss of revenues. My name is Tim Hennessey. I'm the Republican chair of the House Transportation Committee. To my left is Mike Carroll, the Democratic chair of the committee from Scranton?
Pittston.
From Pittston. And that, I think, is we have one other House member here, Matt Gabler. Oh, we have two. Okay, we have Matt Gabler is joining us again today. And who's here? Oh, and John Lawrence from Chester County is here. Joining us virtually are Representative Marsha Hahn, Representative Mindy Fee, Representative Lori Mizgorski from Allegheny County, Representative Lou Schmidt from Blair County, and Representative Aaron Kaufer from Lucerne County. On the Democratic side, we have joining us virtually Representative Jen O'Mara from Delaware County, Representative Perry Warren from Bucks County, and Representative Sarah Inamorato from Allegheny County. Well, I should say welcome to all of you, and also welcome to our viewers on PCN. Since we'll dispense with the roll call, I think we've just done that, put that on the record. If you are participating remotely and you'd like to ask any of the testifiers a question, please email our two staffers, Tori Hollis, who's a research analyst for the House Republican Transportation Committee. Her email is thollis@PennsylvaniaHouseGOP.com. Or Meredith Bashika, who's the Executive Director of the Transportation Committee for the Democratic Committee. Her email is mbiggica@pahouse.net. Meredith, did I get that right? Okay. Oh, we're also joined virtually by Representative Megan Schroeder. I'm sorry, where's she? Oh, there you are. That's right. Megan Schroeder is here in person from Bucks County. I think that takes care of the preliminaries. Again, if you wish to ask a question, please email either of our two assistants here, and we'll get you on the list to ask questions. Okay. Our next testifier is Robert Fiume. Where is it here? I've lost my sheet of paper. I'm sorry. Robert is the board chairman and the executive director of COLTS, and I forget what that acronym stands for, but you're also the president, I think, of the Pennsylvania Public Transit Association. So with that, I'm sorry that we've gone a little bit over time. Well, maybe a lot over time, but thanks for your patience, and begin whenever I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman Carroll has a comment.
Since Bob is Northeastern Pennsylvania, fellow Northeastern Pennsylvania, and I'll take a minute if I can.
Sure.
COLTS is the County of Lackawanna Transit Authority, County of Lackawanna. Okay. And if Bob doesn't have enough on his plate, besides being the executive director of COLTS, he also serves as a school board member in the Hazleton School District. So I have questions for him with respect to how he organizes his life here. But Bob, Bob and I are good friends, does a wonderful job for us in Northeastern Pennsylvania, both in Lackawanna as the executive director for the Transit Authority, and for the probably the largest school district in Lucerne County. I would think Hazleton or Valley West, probably Hazleton. So the largest school district in Lucerne County. So Bob, yes, thank you so much for what you do in our community, the broad community, both Lackawanna and Lucerne counties.
Okay, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure working with you, Representative Carroll. You've always been helpful to us. As Representative Hennessey said, my name is Bob Fiume, and I am the Executive Director of the County of Lackawanna Transit System. also known as Colts, based in Scranton, and I'm also chairman of the Pennsylvania Public Transportation Association, better known as PPTA. So I would like to begin my testimony by first thanking Chairman Hennessey and Chairman Carroll for your continued support on multimodal transportation issues. I would also like to commend Representative Martina White and members of the task force for their work to address sustainable mobility options. PPTA looks forward to being a partner and a resource as part of the path forward. I appreciate the opportunity this morning to briefly discuss sustained funding for public transportation and the important role transit plays in ensuring Pennsylvania's continued prosperity. More than 400 million passenger trips are provided on fixed route transit across Pennsylvania annually. Public transportation services are provided in all 67 counties, and we offer a wide range of mobility options for both daily commuters in urban centers and also a lifeline service for those living in the most remote of rural communities. Transit may look different across the state, but one principle remains the same. All trips are important. Whether a senior citizen is visiting a nutrition center in a remote county, or a commuter is riding a train in Philadelphia, or a college student is traveling from work to school, all trips are important. Pennsylvania has time and time again reinforced the importance of investing in public transportation through such programs as the Pennsylvania Lottery, providing transportation for senior citizens and the disabled. Act 44 of 2007, Act 89 of 2013, and many other programs that support the stabilization and growth of both operating and capital funding necessary to maintain dependable, safe, and efficient public transportation across this Commonwealth. Without continued investment at the state level to support public transportation, mobility and quality of life in every county would suffer. PPTA supports the findings and recommendations of the Pennsylvania Transportation Advisory Committee's 2019 report, where it had identified a need for an additional $1.2 billion for transit agencies to respond to economic development in communities and address state of good repair. Our written testimony speaks to legislation proposed in House Bill 2361 also. Sustained and substantial investment in state funds, and it's imperative for transit to remain viable in all communities, metropolitan, urban, and rural alike. It is crucial for transit system to be able to meet demand for access to health care, basic human services, employment, and educational opportunities. It is very important to note that while PPTA conceptually supports the utilization of new local revenues to enhance transit funding, we also understand that local revenue is not a sustainable replacement for state investment in transit in rural and small urban communities. The funding principles and strategies of Act 89 of 2013 allowed communities to enhance mobility options, build infrastructure, and deliver a variety of transit trips. We believe it is imperative that the General Assembly take action to ensure the continuation of the funding principles of Act 89 and create sustainable and secure state transportation investment strategies. I'd just like to take a few minutes to discuss transit's response to COVID-19. The challenges associated with COVID-19 pandemic over the last 5 months have provided an opportunity for transit to become increasingly resilient and reaffirm our commitment to serving Pennsylvania safely. While much of the focus now across the Commonwealth is on reopening, as you've heard from my colleagues, it bears noting in this meeting, transit never closed. Transit providers across Pennsylvania embraced our role in keeping communities safe while continuing to provide lifeline services so people could continue to travel to their jobs, receive medical treatment, have access to food and other key necessities. We have changed and enhanced many operational practices, including cleaning protocols, increased use of PPE, technology, and other modifications to ensure the continued safety of our employees, our customers, and the communities we serve. By the end of April, we were experiencing substantial impacts ranging from 40% drop in ridership to as much as 97% drop in ridership in State College. As of June 30th, service in many agencies are more in line with pre-COVID service, levels ranging from 40 to 45% of regular service pre-COVID for some, and some are much closer to 100%. On Friday, March 27, 2020, the CARES Act was signed into law and provided emergency federal appropriations to help transit agencies prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. Federal CARES Act money has been used to help meet a variety of needs during the pandemic, overwhelming majority of which was operating expenses. Consumable yet necessary items have resulted in the industry expending significant resources to purchase and do many things, including cleaning supplies, PPE, sanitation supplies, hiring additional cleaning persons, additional training for drivers, additional sanitizing of buses and facilities, modifications, fortifying work and public spaces to become pandemic resistant, our buses providing barriers for drivers are just some of the expenses. While the support received from the CARES Act has been timely and crucial, it is not a miracle solution. It does not fix or completely fund public transit. It does not provide sustainable solutions to the challenges brought on by the pandemic, nor does it offer comprehensive, longer-term funding for the continued provision of transit. It was, and it is, a stopgap, a short-term measure to ensure the continued safety and mobility of the traveling public. You've heard that from my colleagues prior to me. It is also important to note that there are transit providers who received no support or relief from CARES Act. So while CARES Act funding was immediately helpful for some and absolutely appreciated, it does not exhaustively address the ongoing challenges and mounting expenses associated with the continuation of this pandemic, nor the need for longer-term sustained sources of funding. This bears mentioning because transit plays an important role as a partner in the Commonwealth's economy and ultimately the economic recovery from this pandemic for our state. As our state's economy moves forward toward the next phase, transit stands ready to do our part. Banding together in times of adversity is not new to transit. We have always come together to do what is needed during challenging times. In conclusion, I would like to reinforce the importance of a robust state investment in public transportation as this body moves working proactively to address funding challenges and sustainable mobility options. The delivery of transportation programs provided within Act 89 and the lottery all depend on continued investment in transit at the state level, as well as the ability to take these funds and use them to leverage federal funding. Thank you once again for the opportunity to provide testimony today. PPTA stands ready to assist with efforts and with advocacy, anything necessary to address long-term sustainable funding and the continued provision of public transportation throughout this Commonwealth. Thank you.
Mr. Fiume, thank you very much for your testimony. I will say, as a relatively new grandfather, I've learned over and over and over again that the wheels on the bus go round and round. It seems to me that in thinking of that, I should thank you for keeping the buses running and keeping the wheels on the bus and for keeping transit vehicles from running off the tracks, so to speak. And with that, I'm pretty much out of bad jokes. But thank you for your testimony. Thanks for what you do. You have so many different irons in the fire, as Mike was describing.
Thank you.
Do you ever sleep?
I'm just trying to put as much stress on myself as possible. So.
Well, whatever. Thanks for. Obviously, it's one of those. It's a proof of the adage: when you want something done, you get a busy person to do it. As I guess you could say, when you want it done right, you get a busy person to do it. So thank you for all you do. Mike, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Bob, thank you so much for your leadership statewide with the organization and as I said, back home in Scranton. And I know that the challenges related to COVID have been monumental, but even prior to that, for agencies like Colts or your peers in Allentown or Erie or Wilkes-Barre, it seemed to me, as less than an expert in your field, that there had been a change underway with respect to the service that you were expected to deliver. The traditional model of collecting folks in the outskirts and bringing them into the urban center, in your case, the city of Scranton, it seems to me has changed somewhat, where the economic development activities have occurred in business parks and industrial parks situated around these kinds of cities. I know in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, that's certainly the case. And agencies like Colts and others are now trying to struggle with trying to figure out a service delivery model that provides workers to those jobs in the non-urban settings. And I'm just wondering what you see with respect to the future, again, with the full knowledge that all of this is clouded tremendously by the coronavirus. But if you can just step away from the coronavirus for a second and walk me through what you see as the future with respect to agencies your size across the state and how they are going to deliver folks to where the jobs are, maybe not in the urban setting.
So you're absolutely right. So this is happening across the state. And for example, let me use Colts. What we took the time through this pandemic crisis to take a good hard look at our service and I could say sort of right size. So about moving some service around without adding extra costs, if we could, from areas that we may not have the ridership, and putting the service in the other areas. And one of the projects we've been working on was with the Chamber of Commerce and Industrial Parks, exactly what you referred to, that they are in demand for service and they are not obviously right in the city proper. So we are looking, actually going to start some service into some of our industrial parks beginning of September. And the way we're doing it and the way it's going to come down in the future is thinking out of the box. It's going to have to use some demand response service mixed in with what's called microtransit now. And it may be just not a large bus going into the industrial park. It may be a bus going to a transfer center and your smaller vans and smaller buses picking those people up, which is like sort of a microtransit system. So it's going to be thinking out of the box and trying to service those areas. But one of the ways we're trying to afford to service those areas are by right-sizing our system to make sure we're not spending money in areas that we just don't have the ridership. We're moving that revenue or that funding to another set of service. But there are different ways. There's microtransit, there's a demand response service, there's smaller buses and transfer centers. One of the things we're going to be working on in mid-county, a transfer center where we have a few buses meet at one point, and they're very close to the industrial areas that we will service. So that will help us in those areas to not having the riders be on the bus for a long period of time. They will come to a transfer center and transfer right there instead of, it will save some time for them on the buses and some expense for us.
And when I think about our region, northeastern Pennsylvania, Hazleton would be a good example with the parks that Can-Do has out in Hazel Township, and Wilkes-Barre and Scranton having parks outside of Pittston and up in Valley View. Is there a way to get there with Corona? Are you going to be able to accomplish the servicing of those parks while dealing with the financial impacts of the virus?
We are going to try to do that starting in September. As I said, the movements we've made with our service and the new norm, sort of, we are going to try service in that area. As we said, we're going to meet in one spot, and we have smaller buses that we're going to take into the industrial park and see how.
Do you expect any financial support from private entities in these parks? Will they be participants, or have they been approached, or what's been the reaction from the folks in the parks?
Right. So that's another portion of this, as you're saying, taking servicing more industries outside of your serving area, is getting a buy-in from the businesses and your chambers, going to the businesses for you and getting some sort of a buy-in with some help to fund these routes. That's going to have to happen down the road, and I know a lot of transit agencies throughout the state are taking that approach.
Has there been some general, even semi-positive feedback from those folks?
Yes, we have. We've had some, and we're working through those loops right now.
All right, good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony, Bob. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the information. And again, congratulations for all the irons you have in the fire.
Thank you.
You know,
And thanks
keep it
again
up.
for all
Keep
your
up the good
support.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next testimony.